When my mom confronted him, he says, "Oh no, sy het net 'n bietjie troosting gesoek."
A part of Mariette's defense was that Henny Coetzee had hypnotized and drugged her 2 days before the murder, and under his command, she went to fetch her late husband's 9mm from a friend, Mr. Dennis Weber, in Petersburg. She smuggled the firearm over the border and said she took it to Henny Coetzee, who wanted to buy it. She said she left it on his desk the afternoon before the murder. One of the major indications of an affair was during September 1996, when Mariette and Tini took a trip to South Africa to return the firearm to Mike Bosch, Justin's brother.
Tini asked Mariette to marry him only 2 months after he had been murdered. So that would make it about 7 months after Justin had died in a car accident.
That's right.
They were then going to get married in December 1996, but she was arrested in October 96, so they couldn't get married. So they got married the following year in September 1997 while she was out on bail. Frans, how and when did you start reporting on the Mariette Bosch case?
Well, I would say somewhere in '98. It was big news in South Africa. Everybody knew about this. And then at that stage, '98, they refused me the interview.
Had she been charged already or not?
Yes, yes. It was in the South African press. And then out of the blue, early '99, he phoned me and he said, now they're ready to talk.
I find one thing quite puzzling. I wonder why Tini asked Mariette to marry him so soon after Ria's death. I mean, surely an intelligent person would have thought that this might look as if Mariette had a motive to murder Ria.
Well, getting married to Mariette is having complete control over her.
Was it obvious to you that she was besotted with Tini Wolmarans?
The fact that he was in charge, I mean, he said to her, now coffee. He said, get in the car. She didn't want to come to the hotel where I was staying. He said, we will go there and we'll have a drink with the guy. So he was leading the way, and obviously, I don't know whether he had some kind of unnatural power, but he was in charge.
Now, while Mariette was in prison, she asked Tini to become Sune, her young teenage daughter's guardian. Now, Sune lived with him in the same house and then also took on his name, Wolmarans. And soon after Mariette had been executed, they both went on holiday to Cape Town. And
if I want to meet them in Cape Town, I could meet them there. And he will tell me about the execution and how everything happened. I flew down to Cape Town and I met him and Sune down there.
I was wondering whether you're aware of the enormous amount of alleged rumours that have been going around, alleged rumours about an affair between Tini Wolmarans and Sune, Mariette's youngest daughter.
Yes, after my story appeared in the magazine, I got calls from relatives in South Africa as well as friends and relatives in Gaborone. They all told me that Tini's got an affair with Sune. I heard rumors that there was talk of a baby. There was even talk of marriage. And I checked on that. I couldn't get any confirmation. And when I checked with the Botswana authority, they told me that in no way can a minor, as Sune is, get married to anybody without permission. So that story wasn't true. And then I checked with Tini and he was really livid. He went berserk and he started threatening everybody spreading the story. To cut it all short, he denied everything.
When you interviewed them in Cape Town, what were your impressions about them?
Put it this way, when I met Sune in Cape Town, I didn't recognize her. She wasn't the kid I saw in Maun. She was a grown woman. She didn't look 16 to me. Her hair was dyed pitch black, heavy makeup, and she had the body of a full-grown woman. And the two were very lovable. More than that, I can't say. I can't say it was unusual. Remember that her mother died recently. Tini was bereaved, and maybe they were just two people together. I don't know. I wouldn't want to say any more than lovable.
I also heard that there was a group, a pressure group, that wanted to look at the issue of Tini, who was allegedly having a sexual involvement with Mariette's youngest daughter, who was a teenager at the time.
We heard that rumour. I didn't know that the group had direct contact with him, but we heard the rumour, and I was trying to find out whether this rumour had any basis. And yet I heard the rumour repeated from various quarters within the Afrikaans-speaking community. And it sounds as though it was almost common knowledge. But you know how people say, we've heard this and this, and nobody's prepared to come up and say, well, I know it for a fact. And I'd been hoping that with subsequent visits to Mariette, I might have been able to have developed some sort of relationship where I then had been able to find out whether she knew anything about it, whether she'd ever heard of the rumour, and then to get some sort of guidance as to what to do about it. Yeah.
When Mariette was sentenced to death, she appealed, and Mr. Luke withdrew from the case.
And you resigned from the case after the appeal?
For personal reasons.
Not professional reasons?
Well, personal and probably professional reasons, but more personal reasons than anything else. But also, if I may continue.
Yes.
I had very little experience in dealing with post-appeal, in fact, virtually no experience whatsoever in dealing with a post-appeal situation. I had in the past always had the opportunity of saving my clients from the hangman in the Court of Appeal. So I never had any occasion whatsoever to go beyond the Court of Appeal.
At this time, Mrs. Alice Mohwe of Ditswanelo, the Centre for Human Rights in Botswana, became involved. Tini had hired British barristers to take over the case.
But you tried to get her a South African lawyer, didn't you?
I was astounded at how she seemed to have just given up this whole, the Afrikaans thing, the language thing for me is critical, is a really important point. She was surrounded by a legal team which didn't have anybody who could speak her language, which is, I believe, is critical. Should be critical anyway, yes. In all cases. But when you're talking about death and the death penalty and issues of alleged murder, culpable homicide, I think it's incredibly important that you understand the person and understand where they've come from, understand their context. And I thought it would have been useful to have had Brian involved. He's a white South African lawyer. And although people don't like to talk in terms of colour, colour exists and difference exists, as long as you don't use it for a negative purpose. And I was convinced that if she had been able to speak in her own language, to talk really from the gut, to talk about what her concerns were and what she believed in, it may have made some sort of difference. We'll never know. But yes. The right to use your own language is a fundamental right. And if not being able to use it affects your ability to have a fair trial, it is a serious matter.
When Advocate Spilk was not appointed, Alice recommended Botswana attorney Mr. Gafela.
So eventually you only had one proper consultation with Mrs. Bosch. What were your impressions of her? I mean, on a very human level.
Yes. Miss Bosch, at the time when I consulted with her, she was then a born-again Christian. She appeared to me to be a very kind person. A very kind and loving person. I think she was a sort of person who put her heart out to those that she loved. Completely.
Mrs. Mohwe and Mr. Gafela did everything in their power to secure clemency for Mariette. Advocate